Hey guys, it is Miss Calkins, and today we're going to keep working with our Pythagorean theorem, but instead of solving for a missing side of the triangle, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to prove if a triangle is a right triangle or not. So that is called using the Pythagorean theorem converse. So converse just kind of means the opposite of what we were working on. The Pythagorean theorem converse states that if a triangle is a right triangle, then it has to fit into the Pythagorean theorem. So if you're trying to prove that a triangle is a right triangle or not, you have to put the sides that are given to you into the Pythagorean theorem formula and see if it actually checks out or not. If it does check out, then it is a right triangle, and if it doesn't, then it's not a right triangle. If it's a right triangle, it has to fit into the Pythagorean theorem. So for number one, and I'm only going to write the formula one time. I'm going to write the formula up here. Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So that just means that you square a, you square b, and when you add them together, it should equal the square of c. So again, in the previous lesson, we used the Pythagorean theorem to solve for a missing side. If you look at number one, we're not missing any sides, but what we are missing is that little square right here that proves this is a right triangle. We don't know that this is a right triangle. It looks like it is, but we have to put it into the Pythagorean theorem to see for sure. So I'm going to drop each one of these numbers into the Pythagorean theorem, and I'm going to work it out and see if it's true. So 8 is going to go in for a, so that's going to be 8 squared, and 15 is going to go in for b, so that's going to be 15 squared, and 17 is going to go in for c, and that's going to be 17 squared. Now I'm going to put a question mark right here, because what I'm actually trying to see is, does 18 squared and 15 squared, when you add them together, does that actually equal 17 squared? So 8 squared is 64, 15 squared is 225, and I want to know if that equals 17 squared, which is 289. So if you actually add those two values together, that gives you 289, and that is the same as 17 squared, which is 289. So I can say that number one is a right triangle. So the answer to that is yes, because the sides of it fit into the Pythagorean theorem. Now for your assignment today, I think it's set up, you just click yes or click no. So you'd open up the PDF and work them out and write your answers down on a sheet of paper, and then go into Canvas and click yes and no. All right, we're going to do the same thing for number two. It tells me that this side is A and it's 4. This side is B, it's 10. This side is C and it's 14. So I'm going to drop those values into the Pythagorean theorem and test it to see if it works. So if A is 4, I'm going to do 4 squared. If B is 10, I'm going to do 10 squared. And according to the Pythagorean theorem, if it's a right triangle, that has to equal 14 squared or c squared. 4 squared is 16, 10 squared is 100, 14 squared is 196. 16 plus 100 is 116, and that does not equal 196. So the answer to this one would be no. That is not going to be a right triangle. Okay, for number three, don't think that just because it's drawn like this, don't automatically assume that the answer is no. It's just a triangle, so we're just trying to see if it actually fits into the Pythagorean theorem. So it doesn't look like a right triangle. That doesn't matter. You got to look at the sides and see if they fit into the Pythagorean theorem. So A is 9. I'm going to do 9 squared. Plus B is 40. I'm going to do 40 squared. That should equal C, which is 41. So I'm going to do 41 squared. So I'm actually going to see if they equal or not. 9 squared is 81. 40 squared is 1,600. And 41 squared is 1,681. If you add those two together, that is 1,681, and that does equal 1,681. So this is yes. And then the last one, number 4, they didn't even give you a triangle. What we have are just 3 values, one for A, B, and C. So you plug them into the formula just like we were doing before. So I want to know if 13 squared plus 16 squared is 24 squared. I want to know if those numbers fit into the Pythagorean theorem. 13 squared is 169. 16 squared is 256, and 24 squared is 576. If you add these two numbers together, you get 425, and that does not equal 576, so the answer to this is no. Those 3 sides do not make up a right triangle. Okay? So your assignment today, I think you have about 10, 11 or so questions. Work them out on a sheet of paper. You're just going to go into Canvas and put your answers in there. You're going to click yes or no. Come into the Zoom sessions. There will be one at 12 o'clock for block 2 and one at 1 o'clock for block 3. If you need any help with anything from this or the assignment before, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you. Bye-bye.